Alright guys, it's Scrappy again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. After watching all of the CDL action so far here in December, FormaL gives his perspective on the current state of the league and says that changes still need to be made to a more open circuit to make it just as good as it used to be back in the day. Challenges is crazy this year. We've got TacticalRab, Bush Gaming, Lurqxx, the OpTic guys, Zuma, even OpTic are involved with the Huntsman project this season. That does not mean that the CDL isn't as good of a spot as it could be according to FormaL. Changes may well still need to be made. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. There's Bush Gaming point out right here. The Cup is back, so Cup 3 starts today. Tomorrow, of course, will be the grand finale. We'll see what storylines emerge in this one. I'm sure there are going to be plenty. These are your stat leaders so far in the CDL after the first couple of weeks of action. Of course, we've got a little break here over Christmas, New Year. Back to the action in the new year. Now, the numbers are pretty much shared between two players, really, at this point. It's Mercules and it's Ghosty. So overall KD, hardpoint KD, and also, remarkably enough to me, hardpoint time per 10, it's all Ghosty, right? So, yeah, he's been out of control so far this game. It's very interesting really with Ghosty because when he first was a prospect in Challenges, I think it was that Boston Challenges event a couple of years back in that Modern Warfare 2 season. I think it was the one where they all had coats on and gloves because it was so cold up there at the top of, was it Fenway Park? So Ghosty was doing 1.3s, all of Challenges. Then he came into OpTic, as we know. They picked him up, which was pretty much the first time they ever picked up a rookie, and he went into a different role, did that role very well that season for OpTic. They made a couple of finals. It wasn't quite enough. The team chemistry wasn't perfect. They moved on from Ghosty. He went to Thieves. As we know, the rest is history. But the point that I'm making is that over the last couple of years on Thieves, Ghosty has not been considered to be a major slay-heavy player. And look, he's not going to stay at a 1.37 for the whole season. But the point is, it's impressive that he still has that slaying potential there when the team composition is right. And it just seems like he really fits this game very well at the moment. And also, he's still doing the hardpoint time. That's kind of the remarkable thing about these stats. I appreciate they've only played a few series, but still, last year, those were kind of his numbers in the hardpoints, like he would get all the time for Thieves. This year, he's still getting the time, and he's got a 1.4, so pretty impressive. Mercules, though, arguably equally so. In terms of overload KD, he's sitting at a 1.55. Kills per round in Search, and Search KD. I mean, Merc has a 2.05 in Search, which is ludicrous, especially because OpTic have needed it, right? Like, they've needed a few of those Search and Destroy games, Mercules, to bail them out. That's exactly what he's done. Again, Search a lot of the time comes down to decision-making. It's where Mercules is just so strong. A couple of other, maybe surprising names on the list. Hardpoint kills per 10, so in terms of pace on the map, it actually is Gwinn of Surge, which is surprising given that they're the worst team in the league, very arguably. Maybe not anymore, who knows? They've made the TJ change that will be confirmed, we think, shortly. Also depends on what maps they play when you're talking about kills per 10. It is dependent on what the map pool of the team is, because if they play the faster maps, you tend to get some faster numbers. Maybe that's also true for overload kills per 10, but that record belongs to Snoopy of Boston right now, so a good start to the year for him. S&D opening duel win percentage is actually for Skies. Not his best start to the season, but he nearly wins 80% of his opening duels, which is pretty impressive. But presumably, if that's 77.7 a recurring percent, he's probably had 9 opening duels and won 7 of them, which is, impressive, but it's not a huge sample size. And Abuzah, in terms of goals per 10 minutes, he's leading it up for FaZe. So, yeah, no one here on Thieves, but OpTic, Gentlemate, FaZe represented. No Toronto representation either just yet. Speaking of FaZe, Drazah was playing some Chals again. Good to see, just because we know that Drazah's been struggling a bit individually so far in this game. And I was kind of surprised looking at his Twitter that he wasn't tweeting out Chals every day like he always does. But no, he is tweeting out Chals again. He played one with 04 against Simp and Neptune. So yeah, Drazah, it's like last year, you guys remember when FaZe had a difficult start to the year and then they really locked in over kind of Christmas, New Year. They're playing 3 scrim sets a day and all that. And then they got really good and won the first major. That was, maybe FaZe need a similar thing this time around, right? Like, I think Drazah will be playing the game a lot over Christmas, New Year. He always does, but I think it is especially important, given all the talk about a Lurqxx and what might happen with FaZe in the near future if things do not improve. They've done okay so far, but if they turn up to the first major and they come 6th, will Simp have confidence that they will be winning champs at the end of the year, or will they need to do something about it? That's been all the talk about a Lurqxx and challenges, and we'll get into FormaL's take on that here in a second. The other thing that COD League tweeted out, which I thought was pretty interesting, Rick 1 of 1, but Simp says you're a beast, JoeDeceives says you're him. So Simp Decoy. Now, of course, Simp Decoy let's say hypothetically Simp and JoeDeceives were going to play together, it would not be happening on Koi, right? It would be happening on FaZe. So more than likely it would be the other way around. It is interesting what we saw, all of those leaked salaries the other day. JoeDeceives apparently, well, the salary said that it was on 200k. His reply, as we saw yesterday, implied that he's more like on 100k. And I'm sure that there would be teams out there if Joe plays like he has for the last couple of seasons, and the way that he started out this year pretty strong as well on Toronto, that would pay him more money than that. So yeah, there's a world where this happens. I think we talked about it this most recent off-season when aBeZy was linked to go to Toronto potentially with JoeDeceives. This is another opportunity, and if things don't work out for 04 on the FaZe team, you could imagine FaZe have a look at JoeDeceives in the off-season. That is a conversation for another day for sure, but I thought that there was something to keep an eye on here. Couple of other scrim results. We had Stallions Red playing Stallions Black. So of course Stallions Red, that is Havoc's team as it is now, with Encourage, Swooty and Legends, and then the Stallions Black team with Okis, Swagcheck, Symbols is there, Ryan's there, etc. So you know, pretty good to see. Competitive series. Red take the victory 5-3. I'll just go through a couple of the scoreboards here if you guys are interested in seeing how things went. This was the hard point on the Den. This was the hard point on the Colossus. This was the hard point on the Black Cart. So just kind of scanning it. Obviously good map here from Symbols. Interesting to see how Legend's getting on. Deadzone actually points out even more of the screenshots in the replies here. So this is the exposure. Legend 26 and 19. Okay, look, Legend is playing against a Challengers team at the end of the day. These are both Challenger teams, but it's good to see that Legend is, you know, he's not getting slammed in these. He's probably getting a bit of confidence, getting a bit of understanding, bit of learning from playing with Havoc as well. You know, this map 28 and 18 alongside Swooty with a good map as well. They win that Den 6-2. They win that exposure 6-3. So anyway, those are those scrims. The other scrims were Huntsman playing Falcons Academy White. These were also very competitive. It ended 4-3. They lost the Black Heart. They lost the Colossus. Again, dominated the Den and the exposure. So pretty remarkable numbers, really. So this, of course, is the Arcetes roster. Arcetes, Porlex, Priester, and King of Body. They've been pretty damn good so far, right? They made the finals of the other Challengers Cup before, but it does feel like Huntsman are gaining some momentum. I mean, we can see here, this is from Major Maniac's POV. He's now coaching the team full-time, effectively. And yeah, Porlex with a great map here, 38 and 21. But then you got some interesting ones like this, 250 to 85 on the Den. And yeah, Rusby, Kips, Neum, I mean, to be honest, all of these guys, I think, have the opportunity at some point to get into the Pro League this year. There's a lot of talent down there. Some people are saying Neum would get in, and I think he's absolutely in the conversation. I think that both Raspy and Kips and, you know, Renegade, not yet, but at some point is also on the radar as well. So I very much like the team that Huntsman have put together. Challengers, as we know, is a very interesting storyline this season. I also think that Priest is in kind of an interesting spot because, again, what category of players does Priester fall into? Is he one of, because he's gone to Challengers this year, right? After a couple of very underwhelming years in the Pro League, Priest is now down in Challengers. Now, we know that Huke was in Challengers at the start of last game, and the rest is history since then. So, not to say that players can't come back from Challengers and still do great things, but as we know, Priester had a couple of years of underwhelming performance in the league. Now he's down to Challengers. It's, you know, it's difficult to imagine that he comes back, but there certainly are players that are performing on the level in Challengers that if they walked into a Pro League spot, they would do a fantastic job. Of course, we talked about a Lurqxx, but given Priester, you know, look, world champion, but also people kind of know what to expect out of Priester. But it doesn't mean that he couldn't necessarily still be a factor, right? So I think it's interesting to keep an eye on players such as that. The other quick drama that Taylor pointed out before we get into FormaL's perspective is just this. I'm going to talk about this in more detail on the Valorant channel today, but Dark Zero is buying NRG. So we know that NRG were involved in COD for some time. Hector partnered with NRG to form the Chicago Huntsman back in Modern Warfare 19, and then OpTic Chicago was also owned by NRG, but then Hex did the deal with Hastro. They left NRG and all of that. Now, you know, there was obviously some drama there behind the scenes, and this guy in the reply is searchers. OpTic really scammed NRG and Envy, and interestingly enough, Andy Miller actually liked that tweet. So I wonder if one day we'll hear more about what happened there. The main shame about it, in my opinion, is because they used to have a great podcast, aBeZy and Hex, but unfortunately that stopped once they had their beef. But it's just, thought it was interesting because clearly that drama and that frustration with whatever happened in that relationship is, well, it still continues strongly to this present day. I guess we'll just put it like that. But FormaL had a few thoughts. He was talking a little bit about Kenny and his performances so far this season, but also about the state of challenges, right? So we did this documentary the other day on the Breaking Point channel. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I'd recommend you check it out after this video is over. The story of T2P, really we wanted to look at, given that Simp and aBeZy have now broken up, wanted to do a video to say, okay, Simp and aBeZy at their time, but, you know, were they able to match up to the legacy of Scump and FormaL, right? And kind of looking at some of the great duos and why Scump and FormaL still reign supreme. Also some talk towards the end about whether Dashy and Shotzzy could give them a run for their money in the coming years. But anyway, FormaL was watching this on stream and was talking about especially this Infinite Warfare season when United came on the scene and very swiftly were mixing it up with the big dogs. That is not something that is possible anymore.
Like the faces of CDL Talk streamers, Ix, Zuma. Do I think that Ix and Zuma have blacklisted Kenny because he went double neg in a match? What the fuck are you saying to me, dude? Like, actually, what are you saying to me? The fuck? They're trying to. Bro, you are not real. What the fuck? You're not real, right? Colin?
Yeah, the tournaments, the grand final was not
randomly had some like behemoth of an AM team come through and be our rivals for like half a year.
Until the final map.
This is why the CDL needs to have open events, because United was a straight AM team. All four of them were amateurs at the start of the year, and they were in a final with us like 3 times.
But once again, they have karma to thank for getting over the line.
You never know what's in challenge, bro. You never know.
Scump. United were probably the ultimate example of this in COD history, right? Because that team of Arcity, Pristine, it was silly for a time, but then also Gunless was the main figure, really, because who's this Gunless guy? I remember watching early Infinite Warfare 2Ks and seeing OpTic playing this United team in semis and finals, and like, damn, this Gunless guy looks unbelievable. People thought he was cheating, right? Because he was just that good, and nobody had ever heard of him, right? But then, of course, they turned up to the LAN event, and because it's an open tournament, they could compete. They made it to the bracket, they made the run, and they beat OpTic in Atlanta. They lost in Dallas, but they made plenty of grand finals that season, plenty of matches against OpTic that they had, and that was the real story of an absolute Cinderella run of a team that nobody had ever really heard of or expected to do anything, and then they went on to win that Atlanta tournament and be features of the competitive scene thereafter. So look, we know that in challenges, there's a lot of talent out there. We've seen what Mercules has done. We know why people are so excited about some of these challengers players right now coming into the league, but still the way that the CDL is run, it's a closed circuit system. Now, we do have a Pro-Am this year, so the third major in Atlanta, Georgia in May will be a Pro-Am tournament to our understanding. I think it's alongside the DreamHack once again as well, so that is a big deal. Challengers definitely does seem better supported this year, but as kind of like a legacy of the franchise era, which we're kind of still in, but the teams all got their money back for the franchises. The financial side of this doesn't really work the same way anymore. Over the coming years, I'm expecting that the city-based stuff is probably going to disappear as well. So it's still the Call of Duty League, but it's certainly not the same type of league that we had back in 2019, 2020 when it was first formed for Modern Warfare 19. So changes have been made, they will continue to be made, and look, I do think at some point we can probably get back to something like that. We know that the circuits, because we're doing these dream hacks, it's getting run more by these tournament organisers that want to be a little bit more open with things. There is the possibility for that to happen. For example, in Valorant, they have a promotion relegation system from challengers, but this season they're actually allowing the best challengers teams to qualify for their effectively mid-season playoffs, and if they do well there, they can qualify for champs as well. Back in the day, champs used to be 32 teams, 16 pro teams, 16 amateur teams. Certainly not the case anymore. So FormaL would like to see a return to that. I think that certainly challenges, and in some respects the league in general, has taken a step forward this year. Hopefully next year we can continue down that path. Great to see OpTic and other organisations supporting what's happening in challenges. Hopefully that is going to turn heads at the Pro League in terms of changes made next year. Of course, the World Cup, they've got a couple of challengers teams there, but it's still not quite the same. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. and I'll see you next time. This seemed like the team assembled to take down the Dynasty, and the series proved just that.
Got ran by that team for a
T2P
while,
was
dude.
swept 3-0 for the
I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'll give
time.
Zuma his flowers. He was insane.
The effort, though, was commendable. Once again,
was
both
insane
players
this time
finished in the top